Alright, so we're back for part 2 of my take on the Gwent roadmap for 2020. So, without further, let's just get started. I just want to sort of recap on what I did in part 1 there. So I covered sort of the recap that they had for 2019, all this new stuff that came out. I also covered a little bit about some of the new little features that they had to sort of help integrate the community better, just like the Twitch observer for streamers and the Gwent library for setting out guides for certain decks. So, they just finished covering the iOS release and the console, sort of the feature for consoles. So if you guys missed that, I'll have a link to the last video, which they're both getting uploaded on the same day, just in 2 different parts. So I believe this next video that I want to cover, or the next opinion that I want to have, is some new art that they're releasing. So I'm just gonna skip right to it. If you guys missed the last one, I will say that I am going to sort of skip parts of the video because, again, I don't want to, go through an hour-long video in like 3 parts. So I just want to keep it down to 2 parts. I'm going to leave a link in the description below always for the some of the stuff that they have in the playgwent.com news section and the actual video if you guys want to watch it in its entirety. So we're going to skip over to the art.
We'll show you 2 arts for the next expansion. This one you already saw. We teased it on the announcement posts on the banners that we had.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What should I say about it? It's her. Well, I don't know what her real name is, but she's known as the Crow Mother.
Well, you can tell that by the crows that are flocking around her.
Leads a clan of druids in Skellige, a reclusive, very unknown clan.
And people here thought it's monsters.
It is not monsters.
Some version human form.
In the next expansion,
I can see why.
Druids with,
Could be Philippa's sibling because she's also blind.
The Crow Mother, and I think she's super cool and creepy and awesome, and I think Skellige can definitely pull that off. So that's really dark.
So that one you saw, but we actually have another one, which is kind of a curveball. Like, what is this?
What's that?
Totally doesn't fit the first one.
It is not an artifact.
And it's not an artifact.
It is not a unit.
It's a new type of card.
There will be a new type of card in the next expansion. Keep up to date on what's coming. I think the general philosophy with expansions, especially the next one, will be to focus on adding, let's say, 1 core new mechanic, one something big, and this card represents that. And then try to flesh out the existing archetypes, both with those cards and the rest of the cards in the expansion. So I gave the design team a very strict goal for the next expansion to try and flesh out existing archetypes instead of doing something like Crimson Curse, which just created a whole bunch of new stuff.
So those 2 cards I kind of want to talk about, or the 2 artwork. So one, as they mentioned, is known as the Crow Mother. She is a leader of a group of druids, which my guess will be a central portion of one of the expansions that's coming out next year. Mostly based around Skellige, which I like now that Skellige is getting a little bit of support because under the current version, Skellige is sort of near the bottom of the list, and that's not a good thing. Skellige is my favorite faction, as some of you might already know from watching my streams and asking me these questions. By the way, if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to leave them either in my social media, which is the comment section below, on my streams, no problem, on chat. But yeah, it's good to see Skellige hopefully getting some support with the introduction of the Crow Mother and these druids. I don't know whether the Crow... Obviously, they don't mention this, but like, if it was a guess from me, the Crow Mother might be like one of them, either a leader card for Skellige, which I don't think so, because they don't want to have one faction having 1 extra leader card as opposed to others. It might probably be a central card, whereas the druids could support some sort of new mechanic that could be coming in, or they might be trying to sort of support an existing mechanic and might make it a little bit stronger. So potential damage Skellige coming back, no idea. But these are druids though. They're not warriors, so it could be a little bit more on the magic side as opposed to the actual damage. So we'll see. The next one, I have no idea what it is. I know as much as you guys know in terms of that. It's just a sword in a portal. If I were to make a guess as to what kind of card that is, it could be equipment or whatever the heck they could call it, but it could revolve around equipment where maybe it gets equipped to a certain card and then it could give them extra power for maybe dueling sakes. I am not sure. That's sort of the best bet I got. But the thing is, it was by a portal, so could be a new mechanic where you're giving out like weapons to like other cards to make them stronger, maybe a boost mechanic of some sort, or like maybe making dueling a little bit more prominent, because I think there's only 2 cards that duel right now, or 2 unit cards. I know that there's treason's not really a duel. I know there's a syndicate, either syndicate or scoia'tael card that forces like cards to duel each other. But anyway, the point is, duel is probably it's not that big of a thing. Maybe they might make it bigger. I have no idea. I'm just making wild guesses. None of these are probably going to be right, but if they are, that'll be cool. So yeah, that's sort of the take on the new art, the first set of new art. Spoiler alert, there's another one coming in if you haven't seen it yet. If you have, then you obviously know what I'm talking about. But this next section that they're going to talk about, that I'm going to cover, is actually a big one, and it's something that, well, I'm not sure if I want to get into it, in all honesty, because it's going to be a lot of tough work, and it already required me so much energy just to get to the pro ranks. But getting to this is going to be even tougher, so let's see what they've got to say about that.
My God, finally I don't have to use GIFs which show me hiding from people asking about esports. See, we got an E for esports.
We got an E for esports. Thank you, guys.
Exactly, E for esports. Finally.
All right.
Oh God, this is a big topic, and it's a good
big
one. All right, you guys are super passionate about esports. We have a lot of awesome players who have been sticking with
one
us.
of the top wanted discussions for
Yes,
this road.
and we have Legion Weekly talking about esports on Twitter. So yes, and we get it. We're also disappointed by the extreme length of season 1 and the lack of communication from my side. I'm sorry about that. We're all sorry about that.
It's really not his fault. He's been chained to the basement so that he can't talk about esports. But
Why are you talking about my personal life?
sorry.
It's my personal life. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah.
Oh, not really. I'm on the bottom floor of my house.
Ironed out properly before talking about it's why we've delayed it. We came very close to being ready, but there was change in plans and exactly what we wanted to do with season 2, which is why Buja ended up in a slightly pickle.
I got unchained.
But now you're unchained. So actually, maybe you want to do the honors and start announcing.
So let's start with the most important one. Season 1 final. We haven't ended season 1. When is it happening? It's happening in March 2020 already.
Happening.
Yes, it's gonna happen in
Exact
Warsaw.
date should be coming soon, but it'll be in Warsaw in March of
Yes.
next year.
Yes. More details coming on that, but those are the most important things.
Are we gonna wait for season 2 to end? Season 1 to end?
Nah.
Start season 2? Nah.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Nobody got time for
We're
that.
not waiting for anything. We're
Nope.
we're going in. So
Zero.
season 2, because that's the big question. Season 2, I saw the memes like season 2 and a skeleton next to it, stuff like that. I saw it. I know. I get it. So what's gonna happen? So it's happening. Season 2 is happening.
Yes.
Don't worry about it. There's a lot of things we learned from season 1, and we also learned a lot of things about doing esports in a beta state, which we didn't like to a full extent.
I think we went really crazy all in for season 1 and made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And with season 2, you'll notice that we're going for quite a different format.
And one big important change is the season will last 1 year.
Exactly 1 year.
Only 1 year.
We're not going to do this 3-year, 2.5, when's the next thing, and we're going to commit to that.
And to talk about season 2, we prepared a lovely infographic to showcase what are our plans. So there it is. Yes. Okay. So 2 qualifiers each month.
Yep.
4 Gwent Opens planned in the whole year, and a season finale at the end.
Yes.
We'll have more official events in 2020 than we had in previous Grandmaster history, so it's awesome. And everything starts off in January already. So that's where Pro Rank comes back to life, so the resurrection of Pro Rank. And yeah, we'll be introducing also other ways to take part in Gwent Masters. Not only as a viewer or pro player, but we also want to provide esports fans out there to support their favorite players in some different ways. We're thinking about ways how the community can influence the overall esports in a way to contributing to the prize pool in this case.
Yes, so we're definitely going to look in ways to have you guys, help us support the prize pool to make it more interesting. We'll definitely chip in regardless of what you guys support for sure. I think the important thing to note here is there will be something happening every month.
Oh, my face is in the way. Let me move this.
And we'll contribute.
Put it here for now.
And there will be regular events throughout the year.
Yes.
And we'll be talking about later about some of the tools that we've been preparing all year, which one of the reasons we delayed, talking about it, help us do this even better. But definitely, what we wanted is much more frequent events.
Exactly.
That not necessarily are such high budget everything, but let us do it more frequently, so you guys can really engage on this
especially
level.
bigger focus on online, and we'll get to why. Big focus on online because, like you said, we have some tools prepared for that. And moving on, we want to do opens here in our studio because we have a prepared venue for that, and we want to end it off with a nice finale at the end. And the idea, like you said, is to have a very nice tempo cadence of things happening throughout the whole year.
It's been a dry year where pro rank hasn't mattered, and that's something that's personally bothered me for quite a while. That we have this pro rank but without anything for it to support, and we know we wanted to go to this 1 year format.
So they make a lot of good points there. Let me go back to the infographic so you guys can have a closer look. So yes, they are going to make season 2 for pro rankings and qualifiers. Which is great actually, because esports, this one of the things I was looking forward to, because I kind of want to start covering esports on my streams, like maybe open up a esports match just to cover it and have some fun with it. Maybe do a little bit of commentary on my own for you guys that want to watch it. Of course, they'll have their own Twitch live channel, which you guys obviously will want to go watch as well. But you know, I might try doing maybe like a match or two just to sort of keep up with it while maybe I'm playing a couple of games of my own, just to sort of see what kinds of decks that these pro players come up with, because you know these guys put a lot of time and dedication into playing Gwent. I just make videos for not a living, but I just make videos for fun, man. Honestly, that's all I do. I'm a pretty boring guy. But yeah, so season 1 final is gonna be happening in March, so I'll be looking forward to watching that as well. Hopefully, you guys come watch it with me. And right after that is the first open challenge, just a month later. So they're really condensing this all into 1 year, which I kind of preferred, because having 3 years worth just for season 1 was a bit much. Not to mention that they weren't really happening that often anyway, so it's like I think you had like 4 or 5 or 6 open challenges. I can't remember because I didn't follow esports back at the time. And it was spread out in 3 years, so it's like you were getting esports like, let's say every like 4 or 5 months or something like that. My information could be totally wrong, but I think that's just based on what I experienced and what I saw when I was watching streamers play. But I like the fact that they're making more community driven tournaments, so we're gonna see more local tournaments. Those ones I might actually get involved in, just for fun, just to, you know, see what the tournament atmosphere there is like. This is not something that I ever considered doing until just now, when they're finally making it more integrated, when they're integrating it more into the Gwent community, which is really nice, I think. So the tournaments aren't going to be restricted to just the opens and the challengers and the world masters. By the way, no challengers, huh? It's just opens and world masters. I see. That's fine. But yeah, but having 2 qualifiers a month, they're doing a lot actually for every month, which is, I think, is pretty nice. So I guess what it looks like here is every qualifier is going to lead up into an open challenge. I think it's the same format as they did with season 1, but they're just condensing it a little bit more, so I like it. This is pretty nice. I'm pretty happy that esports is making I wouldn't say a comeback, but they are coming back with a season 2. So I'm gonna be looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to see what kind of decks these guys come up with, and hope I can do some covers for them myself just to see how they work. I always enjoyed being able to sort of learn how my opponents play. So that I can either implement it into my own style of play, or B, I can use it against them. But yeah, that's sort of my take. That's why sometimes I overthink in card games, and it's not a good thing, but it's who I am, man. Anyway, so we'll move on to another topic that I think is pretty big and something pretty close to me, to my heart, because I really enjoyed this mode, and well, you guys already know what it is, so let's just move on to it.
Update, because that's also something quite important.
Let me get out of Jason's face.
Last year in our roadmap, I believe, and I answered, I guess, truthfully, that we weren't going to spend any time on Arena this year, and we haven't done anything significant in Arena this year.
Apart from changing when you choose your leader, so at the beginning or at the end.
That was a definitely low cost quality of life change, but generally Arena has remained the same.
Yes.
2020, I want to spend more time on Arena, because especially after iOS launch, I got back into trying Arena, and I feel like it has not stood the test of time. And while it might have been okay when we launched it, early last year, it's a problematic mode that has a lot of major flaws in it, and I don't think a little band-aid will solve Arena. I think we need to make some fundamental changes to make it a more compelling and fun mode.
Yeah. Yeah, like when we were talking about these changes internally, I really like what you said to the whole team, pretty much, that the problem currently with Arena is you have some cards which are very faction specific.
One of the problems.
Yes, one of the problems is that are very faction specific. Like you have some cards which will not work outside of other factions, and you will most likely not
full
draft
test
them.
ability, Righteous Zeal
Yeah.
is a clear example of if you don't draft at least 3 order cards from Northern Realms, it's
Yeah.
a dead leader ability.
Yeah, pretty much. So you have to pretty much sequence everything you choose from it, and it
Like,
doesn't
I don't
work.
think I'm ready to talk about all the changes I want to
Yeah.
do for Arena, but like that specific one, the solution I want to do is I want to make Arena specific leader abilities that are super wacky and fun and play really well. I think the 2 examples I keep using on the team is one is a Shoop leader ability that just plays Shoop just for the people who love Shoop. I think that'd be really fun. I don't know if we'll actually do it, but that's the one idea I've been throwing around. And the other one is something like spawn a copy of all bronze cards in your starting deck and add it to your deck for Arena, which would be like really good for Arena, so that when you draft cards that care about multiple copies of bronzes, they're actually valid in a deck in Arena. And I think we need to do that kind of stuff in Arena. The comments are fun sometimes. Repik should be a leader.
Yeah, Repik
He's
should
tied
be a
to
leader.
Shoop.
He's tied to Shoop. They're bonded.
But there's more I want to do with Arena, especially with the drafting. I also think the drafting has some serious flaws in it, and I think it's also needs some love from a visuals point of view. Like it hasn't had any major overhaul since we launched it, and I think it's due to catch up to the rest of the game. So expect us to improve Arena next year.
So yeah, Arena honestly was one of my favorite modes, and when it came out, I would always try to get that 9 wins, and I ended up getting it I think the day after that it came out because I just loved Arena that much. But with the things that they point out, definitely for sure was problems that I never really covered because back then I wasn't really doing YouTube. I was still just a spectator and a fan. I mean, I still am for sure. But yeah, because of how specific leader abilities are, it's really tough to sort of draft good leader abilities for Arena. So obviously if you're thinking of a leader ability like Mystic Echo is a completely situational card in Arena, hero power in Arena, because if you don't draft scoia'tael cards, how on earth are you going to use Mystic Echo, right? Whereas there's other cards that do pretty well, like tactical decision was always done well in Arena, I think, because with the way Arena works is your lack of ability to make more combos is sort of made up by your ability to use the maximum potential of your deck. So cards like what do you call it again? Tactical decision is great. Strategic withdrawal is also pretty good. Even better if you manage to draw cards that, or even manage to play cards that let you draw more cards. So again, it's all down to using the full potential of your deck. That's just pretty much the way Arena works, and how you know that some cards will be doing better than that. Maybe when they actually do improve Arena, I might do a cover. I might do a video on, let's say, like cards that you'd want to draft for Arena and cards that would prove pretty useful. They didn't mention anything about how they would change sort of the algorithm for drawing cards, because I know Hearthstone has that where it's like certain cards you just won't pick from Arena at all. They use it from a base set of cards, and they obviously do that to sort of make it more, I guess, enjoyable, so that you can it's almost like you want to make it so that if you blindly draw a card without opening your eyes, then you can still have a decent enough deck for you to work with. Hopefully they do something like that for Gwent, where they just won't use certain cards for it. I like their idea of adding in faction specific cards, like what he just mentioned, of you being able to make multiple copies of bronzes. So if you make multiple copies of, let's say, Dwarven Volunteers, man, that's gonna be a lot of Dwarven Volunteers coming out. That's quite the control, and you can combine it with, if you can draft like control based cards. Like for example, Barclay Els, Zoltan Chevet, etc. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen because this is Arena, but you never really know, right? But that kind of goes back to my point from the last video, in which again they might be hitting that line of maybe doing a little bit too much. But I like that they're having all of these ideas, whether they go through with it or not. I like that they're coming up with new ideas to improve the gameplay of Gwent. So yeah. That's sort of my take on the Arena side of things. But yeah, so I guess they did cover it a bit with the drafting, like changing the drafting algorithm. So hopefully they fix that as well, because I find it tougher to draft cards in Arena here in Gwent than I did in Hearthstone back then. So we'll move on. It's not too far from here, but they cover a little bit more of the esports. This is where I kind of mentioned like the website that they use for tournaments, so maybe I'll just skip that. I did write important notes down anyway. So the one thing here that's good that they're adding is spectator mode, so you can actually watch these tournaments sort of on the game as opposed to waiting on stream and stuff, which I think is a pretty good idea because you can watch it, you can cover it, etc. like that if you wanted to. Which I probably might end up doing, sort of do a bit of an analysis, sort of like a bit of commentary in a way. Like I know a couple of you, I've noticed a change in my commentary since I first started doing this. Because if I watch my first video, and I know it's only been like a couple months, but like I feel like the way I've talked in front of a camera and on a microphone has changed quite a bit. So I'm pretty proud of that. But anyway, it's enough about me being all sensy because that's not who I am. But there is another one that we'll mention, and this is the one, I think there's like a couple more before we get to the Q&A points, and I'm just gonna sort of go through sort of the big highlight, just the questions that they had there. So we'll move on to the next one. This one's a relatively short update, which is great. Oh, they did show some screenshots. So regarding that website that I was talking about, you notice that they're doing like there's some tournaments here that's a lot of players. You got some with 128, you got some with only 8. Maybe this will be a bit more, I don't know. 74, 17. So you can have very large scale tournaments or very small scale tournaments. And I like this. This is all the idea of integrating in the community for Gwent to watch all this. Now, I'm not sure if certain tournaments will have special rules. That may be a good thing going down the road. That'd be a lot of fun, actually. I would love to try out one of these kinds of tournaments. Thing is, again, I am at full-time work. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to get this thing organized. I don't know the way they do tournaments because I've never entered one before. But if it's something like make sure your match gets done and you tell me the result by this day, then that'd be pretty great, actually. It looks like people can host them as well. So you got CDPR hosting a couple, and then you got like esports from other, I think, sponsors. I don't know what MDZD. I'm guessing it's an esports team. Sorry, I'm not good at this. But yeah, you can filter out tournaments that you might want to join. You can organize your own tournament. In terms of fees, I have no idea where they're going with that. I don't have it in my notes. Usually I'd write something like that if it was that important, but we can have a listen to it actually. Just so you guys have an idea.
Do to catch up to the rest of the game, so expect us to improve Arena next year.
And we actually have some work in progress screenshots of the tournament web platform we're working on. So we're actually working on a web platform that will let you
Just
carry
for
out
Gwent,
tournaments
with our tournament format and
Yes.
fully integrated
Yes.
into our game.
Yes, and we can actually, I think, show the screenshots in a second. So this will be the best way to kind of, for community to organize their own tournaments.
Yep.
And there are a lot of community tournaments that are happening all the time. I know because I've been sending out prizes for these. So the premium kegs and the meteorite powder for these. And we want to give back to the community. You guys been working on this and, dedicating your own time.
Yep.
You're trying to find sponsors, budget. Like we had in Luca Games, we had the biggest, esports final for Europe, which was amazing. And yeah, this will be a platform that will be connected to Gwent's client via API. So you can expect pretty much anything, automated match notifications, match results, other functions that make the whole tool kind of work. And yeah, it'll just make competitive players happy. And if we want to move more into the online version of the tournaments, we need to have a platform. So this is kind of, it's actually in the final stages of development.
Yep,
and
it's something we've been working on all year.
We plan to launch it early 2020. There's nothing more to add. We need, since we're starting esports very early, we need to have this. You can see the bracket.
Crossing T's, dotting I's right now.
Yes.
Getting the final integrations in.
Yeah.
This is something coming in the very near future.
And since the platform is supposed to be a base for the whole thing, and of course you guys have been watching our esports events, and you saw that we have in-house spectator mode. So of course we've been talking about spectator a lot. It's actually on the bingo chart, so you can cross that out. Spectator is something that we want to introduce to the community. So not only you can have a platform where you do the whole tournament, the brackets and everything, but you can also spectate it, stream it, and create more community content.
It's going to take us a bit more time to prepare everything.
Yes.
Spectator is actually something that's hard to maintain and set up for us.
But
we usually
understand the importance and that it needs to come.
We usually have to make custom builds for our tournaments here, but the fact is we're not far from doing it, and what we want to do is as soon as we can that if you host a tournament, you can set yourself up as a spectator, join a match as a spectator in a tournament only. We won't be doing like, hey, my buddy's playing a match right now, I want to go spectate him. It will be focused mostly on people doing tournaments, where we think as spectators the most important.
Yeah, and I love it because it's a way to give back to the community, especially to the community that is focused more on esports and on the sporty side, let's say, and the competitive side of Gwent.
Yeah.
Which for us is.
So yeah, that's sort of their whole take on the esports. This was the second part. The first part was covered earlier before they went into arena, sort of as a side thing. So yeah, arena esports. With the whole introduction of that platform, you're able to sort of keep track of where you're at in the tournament, which is actually pretty nice. And people can also organize their own tournament. I believe this was mentioned where CDPR dev team might put in a reward to help you out a little bit. That'd be great if they did. I'd probably host a tournament myself, maybe a little bit later down the road, probably not now. Now I just sort of want to focus on the sort of the channel itself, and just to see where I'd be headed for that. So, you know, keep you guys eyes open on the updates, and of course don't forget to subscribe if you are new to this channel. But yeah, I'm looking pretty forward to esports, and hopefully, you know, it does way better. I obviously expect things that coming up always do better than the previous reincarnation. So that's the take on esports. The next one, they cover sort of a little bit on some of the small things they want to improve in terms of like visuals, aesthetics, etc. Don't get me wrong, like I'm not trying to make it sound like it's a bad thing. It's we'll see, and then I'll have my take on it.
Something that we'll keep working on. I have no idea when next year we'll be able to release some of these things, but like I think high up on my list are a few things. One is like when a unit takes damage, we want to add sounds of it like reacting to that damage. So you know, Trebuchet will make wood cracking sounds when it gets hit, and you know, Priestess will go ah. Oh wait, that's gonna be quoted on that. Anyways. Note to Jason, don't quote yourself as a priestess. We want to add more VFX for when status effects comes and goes. We don't represent that visually super well right now, and that's definitely something we want to spend time on. We want to spend time working on how cards slam on the board. I don't think we'll ever do one per card, where every single card has a unique effect when it slams on the board, but we definitely want to spend more time adding in like really satisfying impacts when that happens. So we'll keep polishing animations, we'll keep doing all this stuff that we didn't really have time to do this year, but we definitely want to do this year.
I like that they're doing this actually, because it's all these little things that sort of make card games sort of have an identity for themselves. Like for example, Hearthstone was very childlike in terms of its aesthetics. So it's more kid friendly to look at. Obviously, it's what attracted more people to it. They always had sound effects for people coming in, people dying, and when they attack. So I like that they're doing stuff like that for The Witcher, creating different sound effects for certain things that happen. Like again, with regards to, let's say, machines, if they're doing damage, maybe do like a siege engine sound to sort of correspond to that. I like how they're doing stuff like that. Actually, it adds more to the life of the game. It's their quality of life kind of thing, and I'm all in support for that. I really want to see what they come up with that in future updates. And they also mentioned how cards appear in the boards, and maybe the bigger the unit, maybe like let's say for example, if the old spear tip comes in, and maybe it might do like big walking steps or something like that, and then it slams down. So you know, just to add a bit more of an emphasis on the card being so big as opposed to it just flying down to the field. 12 power, and then like a 5 power, same power with not much interest. It's like the strength isn't so scary in a way. So adds a bit more life to the game, of course. It's the whole point behind that. So we'll go on to their next point, their third to last point. Before I get to the Q&A sort of recap. Let's go here.
The other thing is that we actually have something to show.
Yeah, we teased it a bit earlier. We have our first, what are we calling it?
We call it the Ultimate
Leader Skin.
Yes,
Ultimate Leader Skins are going to be equipable on any deck of any faction.
It's Gascon, my man.
He will be coming next week to the game. Say hi to everyone who likes Gascon. We'll be able to play Gascon in any deck. And this is only possible because of ability branding.
Yes.
Prepare for the Duke of Dogs, my friend.
Exactly. 2019, we decoupled leaders from their abilities.
So, they're adding in an ultimate leader skin, Gascon, the Duke of Dogs. So, Gascon, the Duke of Dogs, will be a hero that could be used in any faction. It looks like they are gonna go down this road where they might add more leaders that could be playable in different factions. Of course, they can't do that with every unit, so my guess is they might go down the lore, sort of as to like cards that were a bit more on the journeyman side. Obviously, with Gascon being a bandit, they don't care who they fight for. As long as they got the money, they're going to fight for them. Which I think is going to be a central theme around like which leaders they choose to be played on every faction, of course. So with Gascon being an example of that, because he does take the pay. If you guys have played Thronebreaker, it's kind of similar, where he'll join you as long as you pay him, stuff like that. So I like that they're doing that with the vanities. They're changing a little bit on the leaders, which is great. And well, when I say changing, like they're making changes for leaders, I should say. So good thing that decoupling comes with some good positive drawbacks. So all right, so this will be the last thing that they sort of cover. That's like that I'm gonna do a take on before they get to the Q&A.
Yes. New vanities. Yeah, I love new vanities. Good.
Midwinter update take 2.
No, please not.
No.
Yikes. We won't talk about it though, but we'll just show it. Let's show it. Nice card back you got there. Ooh, there's more. Ooh, and they move. I love those.
They move? I can't tell.
They're badass.
Oh, the cards themselves move? I thought the animation. Okay, so they don't mention anything about these card backs. But if I were to venture a guess, again, I could be very wrong. I might be very wrong. Is this could be potential rewards for like a challenge run down the road, sort of similar to Dungeon Run from Hearthstone. I don't hate making references to Hearthstone, but it's kind of like the cornerstone of card games, and I'm really apologizing if I'm doing this because it's sort of the only reference I've got in my opinion. But if I can venture a guess, either that or these could be based around like, I mean, why would they leak card art like this if it's just be like, oh, it's something you can buy? I think they would have mentioned something like that. I really hope that this is like a reward for doing something very challenging. So if they do like, let's say a single player run, which would be great actually if they added some sort of single player element to the game and had these as a reward, that would be actually very great. I would be looking forward to it. I would buy the adventure if it was going to be on sale. Don't quote me on that, CDPR. Don't actually make it on sale if it's going to be on sale. Anyway, yeah, so these card arts look very cool. This one on the right looks like it's sort of the origins for Geralt's Witcher background, like, or like his school of the looks like it could be the School of the Wolf. Like this could have been where the School of the Wolf took place. Maybe this is where Geralt did his training before he became a Witcher. This one on the left could have been a potential trial he had to do, or maybe it's some sort of reflection to his past with him as an old man. I don't know. It could be either or. But I'm looking forward to see how they will integrate these two card backs because they're just so nice looking, and I really hope that they're not just gonna show up in some sort of like bundle where you have to pay. If they come with like single player elements, that would be awesome. If not, then you know it's cool too, but it is what it is. And without further ado, I'm actually gonna leave the questions here and I'm actually just gonna finish off with the Q&A. So some of the things that were brought up, there is a new patch coming this month. No idea what it revolves around. They didn't mention it. No new Witcher Tales, so Thronebreaker is probably going to be the only standalone title related to Gwent for the probably next year or maybe forever. They're not going to nerf scoia'tael, and I'm happy. No, I don't want to say I'm happy. I'm actually pretty mad about that because I'm getting tired of playing scoia'tael and I'm getting tired of playing against scoia'tael. They're just very annoying. But I'm kind of disappointed that they're not nerfing it in any way. Maybe they'll nerf it indirectly by buffing other factions. Maybe they'll do that to make it a little bit more balanced, hopefully. So yeah. Somebody asked about Cyberpunk. Obviously, how would they cross Cyberpunk into Gwent if they're two completely different universes? This is mentioned by the devs as well. It's not just me that's saying this. But yeah, they're not crossing. Maybe they'll do Easter eggs. Like I think Cyberpunk will do Gwent Easter eggs, which would be cool if they did. So yeah, there's that for Cyberpunk for some reason. Spy support might be getting some Spy might be getting some support, which is great because I used to love Spy back in the closed beta Nilfgaard days. Just filling up your opponent's row and then just absolutely crushing them. The thing with spies is spies would completely counter swarm decks, because you're putting all your units on their row, all of your spy units on their row, and they're not going to be able to face spiders anywhere. Now, if a lot of your spy units are all 1 power, then obviously Ghostly Warp eats them up. This is just an example. But usually, other than cards like the Bone Talisman or Yennefer that supports any cards, they're usually faction and archetype reliant. So in some ways, it will mess up your opponent's board. And because of your ability to only have 18 units on the board at one time, then that could be a bit tough. They won't be releasing any new factions for a while. Makes sense. I mean, Syndicate was already a big one as it is. It's good that they're spending more time balancing their current factions so that they can get stronger, as opposed to like introducing new factions, and let's say Skellige goes even down the ladder and they just completely throw it away when it's still there. Not a good thing. It's better that they're balancing their current factions. Let's see. No animated tokens. Makes sense. Like, they're not gonna waste their time with it. Okay, so we remember that Northern Realms had a big rework with the Iron Judgment release. So most of their cards got reworked. They introduced armor and barricade. They're saying they're not going to do a faction rework as big as that, which makes sense because they completely changed the face of the Northern Realms. They changed it to a face that makes more sense, but like comparing it to what Northern Realms was like before this came out, very different. And I think that's good because you don't want to take away the identity of a faction by changing all of its cards. They did mention as well that in sort of replacement for that, they would change sort of the certain cards in a set, like certain card set that supports a certain mechanic, which is great that way. Whereas while you're still maintaining the identity of the card, you're not sort of changing the whole face of it. So I like that they're doing that. Speaking of Northern Realms, they got introduced to Warfare cards, and you haven't seen many Warfare cards or Warfare support. So the one question was asked about Warfare support, and it could be coming. It will be coming. Jason only replied with a very awkward and kind of cringy smile, a creepy smile, I should say, not cringy. But yeah, so it could be telling us that Warfare support is coming. Spectator for Friends is not coming till 2021, as they mentioned, which makes sense because they just introduced Spectator mode for 2020. So to go straight to Friends might be a little bit too ambitious, considering the amount of stuff that they're thinking to work on already. So that makes sense. Gwent merch, if more Gwent merch is coming out, expect me to buy them. I'm gonna probably have some posters up on the wall here because, as you can see, it's all a big shade of white. So yeah. They're going to do changes to music, which is actually pretty cool. I did enjoy the music from the closed beta, but again, that change in atmosphere coming into Homecoming, you can't just simply put a track from the old closed beta music for Gwent into this version just because of the change in atmosphere. Like, imagine playing like a Skellige, like a Monsters theme with this kind of, I think it's just too spooky for the closed beta. The closed beta music was a bit more on the sort of happy, childish aesthetic side, similar to Hearthstone. This one is a completely darker shade, so it wouldn't fit. But you know, working on the music, sort of just the harmony and sort of the things that sort of the composition. I'm not good with music terms, so don't judge me on that, or judge me, up to you. But yeah, they might change a bit of the composition of the music, like what instruments they would use to make up the track. I think is a better approach to this. So there is that for the music. Wild Hunt, they're not sure what's happening with the Wild Hunt. I remember back in the Monsters days for closed beta, it was an archetype of its own, and it was actually pretty powerful. They relied on each other to get all their boosts up, and I think that was actually pretty cool. Not as cool as Absorb Monster, of course, but it was still pretty cool. And yeah, so, and the last mechanic here that they asked for that probably won't get supported for a while, they said, is the discard, which makes, I don't say it makes sense, because discard for Skellige was so useful. Being able to filter through your whole deck to get the cards you want and almost guarantee that you're going to get a killer combo in the last turn is pretty crazy, I think. So I'm not sure if they're going to get support for discard in Skellige, but they might add more, let's say, like one-hit wonders, like for short, like they might add more short round support for Skellige. Their best short round card right now, their best short round combo right now, in my opinion, would be Iris Shade and the Draco Turtle. That's a 17-point play. Not that big, but I think it's big enough. So yeah, there's that. So that's sort of all of the recap they did for the Q&A session. This video was a little bit longer than the last one because this half was slightly bigger and they had more news. They didn't do a recap or anything like that. So I'm actually going to end it off here. If you guys did enjoy my take on the roadmap for 2020, well, roadmap, like, you know, going into 2020, I should say, please do leave a like on the video. Let me know on like what changes you guys are excited to see and which ones you guys are probably not that excited to see or whatever. But I'd be excited for everything, which is all pretty cool. I like the stuff that you're doing. And yeah, so leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment on any changes you guys would like to see. And of course, subscribe for more Gwent content. Other than that, this is Enzo signing out. Catch you guys in the next one.